Shalom, more praise to Yahweh Bashim Shah, double lines Apostle GMS. This is Anna Allah coming at you in the video. I'm not sure what I'm gonna title this video, but basically it's going to like the brotherhood and being considerate of other brothers. You know, like I was saying before in the previous videos, I believe I mentioned it in my previous video, but everything is not gonna always be a breakdown, a history lesson. Certain things is gonna be, scriptures, like understanding scriptures. It's more than just breakdowns in history, man. Because you can know all the breakdowns in history you want, but what happens when it comes to conduct? Then what? These are the kind of scriptures that people look over. So let's get right to it. This is the book of Philippians, chapter 2, verse 4. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. So you don't look not every man on his own things. So you don't look upon your own things. Meaning you don't look to seek self-interest. You don't look to seek your own selfish desires. But every man also on the things of others. You gotta look upon the things of others. You gotta look upon the needs of others. Meaning what? You therefore have to be considerate of other men. You have to be considerate of the brotherhood. You just can't look upon your own self. You have to look upon the things of others, so that other brothers could take part in the blessings that the Most High has graciously given unto you. You know what I mean? And these are things you gotta take into account. This is a brotherhood. That mean if you have money, you're just gonna just be throwing it in the air like it's a party. But you're supposed to give. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be considerate. Other brothers might be greater aspect, but other brothers may be more destitute than yourself. So you don't just look upon your own things, upon your own wants, upon your own desires, upon your own self-interest, but every man also on the things of others. You gotta look upon the things of others, the needs of others. In other words, you have to take other brothers into account. Alright? This is the book of Acts, chapter 20, verse 33. I have coveted no man's silver or gold or apparel. So that's what the Apostle Paul is saying. He didn't covet any man's silver or gold or apparel, because when the Apostle Paul did the work, he was really doing the work. I don't want to say primarily. He was doing the work for the sole purpose of obtaining that crown of glory. He was doing the work for the sole purpose of getting deliverance, having mercy and grace being shown upon him, that he would deliver and that he would inherit everlasting life. So he didn't covet any man's silver or gold or apparel. The Apostle Paul wasn't doing it for the silver. He wasn't doing it for the gold. He wasn't doing it for the clothing. He wasn't doing it for the materialistic possessions. Now, of course, as the scriptures say, muzzle not the ox that treadeth the corn. If you have an ox that's treading the corn, you're not supposed to put a muzzle on that ox. In other words, if an ox was, let's say, if an ox was treading wheat and separating the wheat from the chaff, when the ox was treading it, you're not supposed to put a muzzle on the ox so that the ox can't eat. The ox should have to do what? It should be able to live off of its labor. It should be able to live off of its work. So if an ox was treading the corn, the ox should be able to what? To eat off of it. To eat the corn that is treading as it's working. But if you put a muzzle on the ox, then the ox can't eat. Same thing with this truth. Okay? It's the same thing with this truth. You have to be able to live off your labor. Like the apostles, the elders, they're really supposed to be able to really should live off of the churches. They should be able to live off of all of the camps that contribute by paying tithes or giving money if things are needed. It should be able to live off of that. Alright? But it's not going to always be that way. But even if you don't have a lot of money being given to you by the followers, you still do the work anyway. So that's the mentality Apostle Paul had. He didn't covet any man's silver or gold or apparel. Ain't no covet means to desire something that's not yours. Because the Apostle Paul wasn't doing it for that. He was doing it to obtain that crown of glory. Because you had people out there that believed in the Apostle Paul, that believed in Yahweh Shai and believed in the teachings of the Apostle Paul, but they may not have had the means. Some of them did not have the means to actually support him financially. Let's read on. Yea, ye yourselves know that these hands have ministered unto my necessities. So when the Apostle Paul said these hands have ministered unto my necessities, the Apostle Paul is saying his actual hands, his actual labor, physical labor ministered or served unto his necessities. Meaning his hands actually labored and it gave him the necessities that he needed to live. Because the Apostle Paul was what? He was a tent maker. As I mentioned in the book, if I'm not mistaken, Acts 18th chapter, the Apostle Paul was a tent maker. That was his profession. And to them that were with me. So the Apostle Paul's hands had labored unto his necessities. And to them that were with him. So the Apostle Paul even helped support those that were with him on the ministry by actual labor. But this is an example of what? Let not every man look unto his own self, but unto the needs of others. Can I just read about that in Philippians 2nd chapter? In the 4th verse, if I'm not mistaken. Verse 35. Okay, I started at Acts 20 verse 33. This is Acts 20 verse 35. I have showed you all things, how that so laboring ye ought to support the weak. So he said, I have showed you all things, how that so laboring ye ought to support the weak. So the Apostle Paul labored to support the weak, those that were less fortunate. And to remember the words of the Lord Yahweh Shai, how he said it is more blessed to give than to receive. So it's more blessed to give than it is to receive. So it's greater to give than it is to receive. Why is it greater to give than it is to receive? The reason why it's greater to give than it is to receive is because when a person is giving, they're removing any self-interest. They're removing any ego. They're removing any pride. And they're humbling themselves. Putting someone else before their own selves. Showing consideration for someone else. A lot of people can't give, but they're willing to receive. They're more willing to receive than it is to give. And the reason why they're more willing to receive than it is to give, because they're only worrying about their own self-interest. They're not worrying about the needs of others. But someone who chooses to give rather than to receive is a person that puts others' necessities over their own. And putting someone else's necessities over your own, you're going to receive a greater reward. Alright? Because that is an act of humility. And if you give cheerfully, because the scripture tell you the Most High loveth the cheerful giver, if you give cheerfully, the Most High is going to reward you. The Most High will reward you materialistically 20, 30 times greater than what you offered. The Most High may reward you with knowledge or anything. You may have an ailment and the Most High may heal you. It may be a certain, Satan may be messing with you. A demon may be plaguing your spirit and the Most High will remove that. Who knows what the Most High will give you? Okay? And when he had thus spoken, he kneeled down and prayed with them all. 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 7. Every man according as he proposeth in his heart, so let him give. So whatever in your heart, in your mind, your spirit you want to give, let him give. Not grudgingly. Let's get the word grudgingly. See what that means. So it's telling you don't give grudgingly. So these things, let me go back. So these things that brothers got to take into account is more than just a deep breakdown. Okay, right? Deep breakdown. It's more than that, man.
Strong's G 3077.
Lupe. What this here is? It says grief. Let's go down. Sorrow, pain, grief, annoyance, affliction. A person's mourning. So when it says don't give grudgingly, it means don't give in annoyance, don't give in affliction, sorrow, pain, or grief. Meaning, don't give it like, oh man, here we go again. You're supposed to give it from your heart. Don't give it like it's a burden unto you. That's what it means to give grudgingly, like it's an annoyance, or pain, or grief. Like, man, I gotta go give this brother something. You gotta take these things into account, And you also gotta take into account your situation. If you don't really need it, and you good where you are financially, then guess what? Take into account another brother around you that might need something. Take into account another brother around you that may need something. because that brother may be in greater need than you. You understand? These are things that have to be taken into account. Alright?